The 2021 Formula One Championship came down to the last race of the season, and it would prove to be one of the most epic endings we've ever witnessed. But did you know that in the last 20 years, the championship has been decided in the last race 8 other times? So where does 2021 stack up? Here is the top 9 season finales in order of epicness. Following a disappointing 2005 season, in 2006, Michael Schumacher was winning again. He and Alonso were set for an epic finale, but on the penultimate race, while leading, Michael Schumacher's engine failed. It gave Alonso an easy win and a big lead in the championship. Coming to the final race in Brazil, Alonso was 10 points clear, which is exactly what you got for a win. So the odds were stacked against Michael, and it got worse in qualifying, where reliability issues meant he would start P10. Then, in the race, he'd suffer a puncture. With all these issues for Michael, and Alonso having a comfortable race, Alonso winning the championship never looked in doubt. Lewis Hamilton came into the race 17 points clear of Nico Rosberg. Normally, with that gap, he'd have to finish P6 or better to secure the championship. But this race had double points, which meant he needed to be P3 or better. The Mercedes car was dominant all season, so it was still a tall order to have somebody finish P2 between Nico and Lewis. But Nico was on pole and Lewis on P2, so it seemed possible. However, immediately at the race start, Lewis took the lead, and soon after, Nico Rosberg's car was not 100%. Lewis would go on to win the race, and Nico limped around most of the race and finished P14. By the last race in 2003, Kimi had only one race win all season, but he still had a shot at winning the championship. Kimi needed to win, and his rival Michael Schumacher had to be P9 or less, i.e., not score any points. Even though Michael had a tough race and finishing even P8 was not a sure thing, his teammate Rubens Barrichello controlled the race up front, and as long as Rubens won, Kimi would come up short. In the end, Michael did get P8 and secured his record-breaking 6th championship. After 2 consecutive championships for Mercedes and Lewis, this would be the 3rd year of Mercedes' dominance. This time, Nico was ahead coming into the final race. With a 12-point cushion, Nico just needed a cool, steady race. Hamilton started on pole and Rosberg next to him in P2. The race would finish in that same order. There was late drama, however, when Lewis slowed down and backed up Nico into Vettel in the hopes of forcing an error. But Nico Rosberg held his nerve and would exit the sport as champion. The final race in 2010 season was down to 4 men. Alonso led Webber by 8 points, Vettel by 15 points, and Lewis Hamilton was still mathematically in contention, 24 points behind. Most of the focus was on Alonso and Webber. There was even talk about Vettel playing the team game to help Webber if it came down to it. After qualifying, Vettel was on pole, but Alonso was P3, ahead of his closest rival Webber in P5. During the race, an early safety car gave an opportunity for some to go on a different strategy. When Alonso and Webber made their stops, they found themselves behind the early stoppers and just weren't able to pass. Vettel went on to win the race, and because his main rivals were only 7th and 8th, he had enough points to overcome the deficit and win his first championship. In the final round of the 2012 Formula One season, Vettel leads Alonso by 13 points, and after qualifying P4, while Alonso only manages P8, it seemed Vettel may cruise to a 3rd title. But things got interesting at the start of the race when Vettel got a horrible start and Alonso an amazing one. By turn 3, Alonso was already ahead of Vettel. Then, going into turn 4, Vettel and Bruno Senna collide and Vettel is spun around and hit again as he's rolling backwards. Somehow, he doesn't suffer terminal damage. He is now last, but quick enough to move up the field. When light rain starts to fall, he pits for intermediates, but has to pit again for slicks since it doesn't actually start to rain. Later, it does rain, and when Vettel comes into the pits again, his team isn't ready for him. Apparently, his radio isn't working, and he's unable to communicate when he's coming in. After a slow pit stop, it looks like nothing can go right for him today. But somehow, under tricky conditions, he comes through the field again and finishes P6. Alonso has a solid race, but finishes P2, which isn't enough for him to win the championship. As the 2007 season wound down in China, the penultimate race, Hamilton was ahead of his teammate Alonso by 12 points, and Kimi by 17. He was battling Kimi for the lead, a battle which he should have conceded considering he was so far ahead in points. Perhaps with a little more experience he would have. He wore down his tires, and when he had to pit, he slid into the gravel, where he was stuck and had his first retirement all season. With that retirement, Hamilton stood 4 points ahead of Alonso and 7 points ahead of Kimi coming into Brazil. Hamilton needed to put the last race behind him and have a clean race. It didn't go as planned, however. Hamilton got away at the start okay, but while fighting Alonso, he ran wide at turn 4 and fell to 8th place. Since the Ferraris were out front and Alonso just P3, Hamilton still had a good chance of winning because P4 was still easily possible in that McLaren. But then, more drama. His car suddenly lost drive. It all seemed to be over, but suddenly he got going again. But the task was now much harder. He was last and 2/3 of a lap behind. By the end, he only finished 7th, and Kimi went on to win and complete a miraculous comeback. He finished 1 point ahead of Hamilton and Alonso to become world champion. The 2008 season probably seemed like deja vu for Hamilton. He was 7 points ahead going into the final race, and this time he was up against Felipe Massa. And again, he found himself needing to finish 5th or better to clinch the championship. It all came down to the last few laps where rain started to fall. Teams needed to decide whether they should pit for intermediates or stay out on dry tires and hope that the rain wouldn't get too bad. Hamilton was one of the drivers who pitted and thus dropped down to 5th. He couldn't lose another place. The tension on both sides was immense, and just before they started the final lap, he was passed on track by Vettel. The Ferrari garage, Massa's family, and his home crowd began to believe, and the McLaren side feared Lewis would come short yet again. As Massa crossed the finish line, his team and family thought that he had done it, but further behind, Timo Glock was struggling on slicks. Hamilton passed Glock exactly where he was passed by Vettel 1 lap earlier, and he crossed the line in 5th. Both sides were celebrating, but soon the realization set in. Although Massa did win his home Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton was crowned champion. Finally, the 2021 season finale. It really doesn't get better than this. Not just because of this race, but the whole season leading up to it. Hamilton and Verstappen were on a league of their own. They would battle on track numerous times, trading wins and championship leads back and forth. In the end, after 21 races, somehow, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen were on even points. No math had to be done. Whoever beat the other would win. It was that simple. In terms of pace of the car, Lewis Hamilton had a slight edge. Towards the end of the season, the Mercedes was a faster car, but Verstappen was on pole. As they got away, Hamilton took the lead, but Max wasn't giving up that easy. He dove down the inside at turn 6, but Hamilton stayed ahead, taking a shortcut. Surely he would have to give the place back, everyone thought, but the race stewards saw it differently. Hamilton kept his lead and would build a nice gap ahead of Verstappen. But Red Bull had a trick up their sleeve. They would use their second driver strategically. The two leaders pitted, and Sergio Perez stayed out. As Hamilton caught him up, Perez was told to slow down Hamilton as much as he could. He defended heroically, earning himself a nickname, Minister of Defense. Hamilton's lead was cut down to a couple of seconds, but once ahead of Perez, he would extend that lead again. Later, a virtual safety car came out, and with nothing to lose, Red Bull decided to pit Max. with fresher tires, maybe he could catch up. But it wasn't enough. Hamilton maintained a good pace and looked to go on to win the race. With just 5 laps to go, Nicholas Latifi crashed and brought out the safety car. Again, Mercedes decided not to pit. Lewis was now on the same tire he had been on since lap 14. Verstappen, again with nothing to lose, came for fresher soft tires. Verstappen now had a massive tire advantage, but would he be able to use it? Would the race even get underway again? It seemed like maybe not. Lapped cars are normally allowed to unlap themselves. Perhaps in a rush, the race director decided only the lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen should unlap themselves. This was it. One more racing lap to decide the championship. Everyone was looking at turn 6. That will be the first overtaking opportunity. But Max Verstappen surprised everyone as he dove down the inside at turn 5. He took the lead, but it wasn't over. He needed to defend for 2 long straights. Hamilton had the slipstream, but because the safety car had just ended, there was no DRS. Turn 9 was the last overtaking opportunity. Max defended the inside and came out ahead. He would cross the finish line, P1, and win his first championship. There you have it, the top 9 season finales in Formula One in the last 20 years. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Comment below. And if you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe. Thank you.